Aloha from my kitchen table. Hi, everybody. This is David Welch, and I'm here with Bethany Barbary, and we are excited to be here for this episode of Bethany,
the ETS Travel Podcast. All right, everybody. Well, we're super excited to talk to you today about 4 benefits that come out of group tours and that you can't get when you're traveling just as an individual on your own. So we're really wanting to help you learn about, the amazing fellowship that can come out of traveling together, what some of the amazing benefits are, and just why it's a whole lot more fun to travel as a group instead of on your own. So the first thing that we're going to talk about as a benefit is, taking the time to enjoy the scenery and ignoring the road. So what do we mean by that? I'll give an example. About 2019, we were gearing up for the big Oberammergau Passion Play that happens every 10 years in the little village of Oberammergau there in Germany. So we all went as staff, like 80 of us, to go and check everything out, dot all our I's and cross all our T's, make sure all the arrangements were ready for the thousands of people that were supposed to go in 2020. And, it was so beautiful just sitting on the bus and driving through the Alps and getting to see this whole area and just the beautiful, Bavarian countryside. And the whole time I'm thinking, this is just so nice. I don't have to worry about driving on the Autobahn with all the crazy people since there's no speed limit. I have this wonderful bus driver and he's taking us around and I can just look out the window and see all the beautiful scenery and really be in the moment. And I'm not worried about how I get to the next place because that's already kind of planned for me. So David, do you have any kind of experience like that?
Oh, I do. I have any experiences like that. Okay, yes. So I would say a lot of times group tours, people in their minds peg it as something that is for, let's say, early retirees and later. That's just not true. In fact, for my kids, when they're old enough to travel without us, I am 100% sending them on group travel experiences. And here's the juxtaposition. When I was 20, I went on a choir trip to England and Scotland. But I had the brilliant idea of convincing my parents that it was okay for me to take my bags and just go down to Italy and then get myself back to America by myself. Probably not the best idea. So I wake up in Rome, I miss my flight to Venice, so I have to get a train to Venice, and then I ran out of money. I ended up stowing away on a train through the Alps, through Austria, and had to rebook my ticket going from, Munich, Germany. Finally, I was able to pay for part of the train ticket going through the Alps. So I suppose, owe the Austrian government some money. But bottom line is, thank God I was able to make it back into the United States in time for my brother's graduation. That being said, I would never recommend that to anyone. It was extremely stressful, and we collected about $300 or $400 worth of toll calls from a payphone. They don't have those anymore. But anyway, the bottom line is there's so much risk to travel when you don't have a good plan. And when you're working with a very professional tour operator and a travel advisor, that removes some of that risk. It doesn't remove all of it, but you've got someone to rely on if something does go wrong or something changes. And so I think that transcends generational gaps. I really do believe that group travel is it's safer. And there's so many benefits when it comes to not having to navigate train stations for the most part and navigate highways and all of that. You get to trust that the professionals are doing that for you.
Yeah, and that's always something really reassuring. When you're traveling with us, there is always a dedicated tour manager on the trip. So, they're calling ahead, making sure that your next destination's ready for you, or that the hotel's going to have the porters there and giving them our arrival time so they can come get the bags off the buses, things like that. They'll double checking appointment times, because a lot of times we'll do skip the line tickets for the groups. You aren't waiting outside to get into the Vatican Vatican Museum, or, into the Uffizi Gallery if we've included that in like a tour of Italy and things like that. So, it's just there's a lot of comfort in traveling with people that are going to take care of you. And so you can just ignore all the details. You don't have to worry about it because you've got a whole team that's taking care of you. And so to me, that's the number one benefit for sure of group travel. So now we can talk a little bit about benefit number two. So benefit number two is more upfront free time, because who has the time for planning? As an example, I plan trips for my family, for my husband and my son, because that's what I do for a living. So when we're doing a personal trip and we're wanting to travel as individuals, I got to look at air schedules and then figure out how I'm getting us from the airport to the hotel, and how much are we going to wander on our own, or do I want to book a couple like day tours and things like that. And then, having an emergency plan if our flight's delayed, I got to make sure I got how to call the hotel and all this stuff. So, that's why benefit number two is, if you're not into planning like me, I love the planning, in going through contingencies. If you don't want to do that, the beauty of group travel is all of that planning is done by us. We take care of all of that, so you aren't going to have to think about it. So David, you have a very large family. You want to talk a little bit about what it's like planning travel for them?
Oh my goodness. Well, here's yes, I'll say everybody in large families has opinions. My family just happens to be maybe a little bit more opinionated. And thank God we still are able to figure it out from time to time, my extended family. In fact, a few years ago, we all ended up weekending in Iceland together, which was one of the best memories for my dad's 60th birthday. That was, it's so many years ago, 9 years ago. But another time, everyone was planning on traveling to Israel together and then doing a whirlwind tour of Scandinavia. And this was, I don't know, what was it, 15 years ago when the volcano happened in Iceland. So we put in probably 30, 40 hours of planning, finding the right hotels and the shuttles and doing all of that. And then the volcano happens, and we didn't have travel protection. So we had to literally call every single supplier, every hotel, beg them for mercy. And I think we ended up losing a few $100s each. But that would have been so much easier had we worked with an ETS, worked with a travel advisor to book everything for us. It probably would have been the same price or maybe even less because of the purchasing power. And then we would have been recommended to buy travel protection. And guess what? We wouldn't have had to go through all of those headaches.
Yeah,
It was
and you would
so
have had
fun.
an emergency line to call.
Oh, that too. Imagine what if we were stuck in Sweden because we couldn't get back to the United States due to the volcano. Like, so there's all sorts of scenarios that could have happened, that pain would have been prevented had we actually worked with ETS and a travel advisor.
Yeah, so that's one of the
How about
great benefits, if you're traveling as a group with a company versus when you're solely responsible for all of the planning. So instead of spending the 30 to 40 hours that, David's family put into it, and then to still have it kind of go awry and then spend more time into replanning it, isn't it great if you're talking to a travel advisor and say, hey, I want to go here, and they're like, well, I've got this group package, and you can book into it and travel with like-minded people, and it's got everything included, so all you got to do is put down a deposit and remember to pay in full. And then if something does go wrong, here's this emergency line, and there's people that'll answer 24/7 and take care of you. Like, if you're not people that travel regularly like you do, David, and like I do, that's an amazing peace of mind to just know you're taken care of the whole way, and you don't have to spend those 30 to 40 hours planning.
Well, it kind of goes back to the whole Starbucks mentality, Bethany. I think with pilgrimages, people may be a little bit less consumer oriented, but who doesn't like to be taken care of? I mean, that's why we pay up for coffee, is because we like to have it our way and have that great experience. Now, with group travel, you might have to give a little bit because it's not going to be exactly your way if you're also taking into consideration the interests of the other 30 or 40 people that are traveling with you. But you still have a little bit of that concierge style service because there are people there to serve you and to help make that a great experience for you. So I 100% concur, Bethany. I think it can prevent a lot of pain, but it can also be really delightful to have that support.
Awesome. And in going into that support and traveling as a group, benefit number three to me is making new friends or not. So, to share with you guys, like the very first time I went to Israel, so I was 18. This is all the way back in 2005. And the only time I could go was when I had a break from my college classes. So it had to be like kind of over the Christmas break holiday time. And so the only group I could go with was this family group out of Cocoa Beach. And it was kind of a pastor that had traveled with us for a long time and taken many, many groups to Israel. And he really wanted to take his adult children and grandchildren. And they were kind enough to let me tag along because for all our employees here, we try to get them to travel to Israel at least once and experience the Holy Land, you know, since that's a large amount of the business we do. And so it's important to experience it so they can explain it to people they're talking to on the phone and things like that. So this was my opportunity. So, you know, I'm a total outsider. This is a actual family traveling. Like, you know, it was 15 of them, but, you know, their grandfather, you know, children, grandkids. And, you know, I still keep in touch with them to this day. So 20 years later, I still every few years go see them in Cocoa Beach, and they're wonderful people. So I made lifelong friends on this trip, you know, that going into it, I'm like, man, you know, they could just kind of ignore me. They're just letting me tag along and all that kind of stuff. But they so included me. And every time I've traveled with a group through ETS, obviously some of the travel advisors, you know, if they're traveling with their groups, they would have worked with me, but I wouldn't have worked directly with the pastors and the pilgrims and things like that. And the beauty of Christian travel is just the fellowship that comes out of it. And the vast majority of people are so welcoming. They will give you the opportunities to be included in the group and in the times of worship and when they're doing devotions at the sites, you know, and I probably have already gone over this 3 or 4 times in our different podcast episodes, but it's just so true. You know, I always use the example of, you know, Cindy sits on one side of the church and Sharon sits on the opposite side of the church, and they both attend every Sunday religiously, same service, same time of worship and everything, but they've never met. They've both attended the church for 10 years and they've never met. But then their pastor comes and says, hey, I'm going to lead a trip. And anybody that's interested in following in the footsteps of Paul, you know, I encourage you to join me. We're going to go through Greece and Turkey, and both Cindy and Sharon, who never met each other, both sign up for the trip. And they end up sitting together on the bus, or they end up rooming together during the trip. And the next thing you know, Cindy and Sharon are lifetime friends. They always are going to remember the memories they made together on this trip and the time they spent together. And this whole new relationship is built because they both decided, hey, I'm going to step out of my comfort zone and I'm going to go travel with a group. And there may be people that I don't know, and hopefully, you know, they'll let me join in and things like this. So to me, that's the benefit number 3. And a very, very important one is you can make new friends because you're traveling outside of your comfort zone with people that you don't know. And then, you know, if you're a little more introverted, they'll still be very welcoming, but you don't have to become best friends, and you're still going to have a good time. Like, that can happen too. Do you have any kind of examples of that in your experience, David?
I absolutely do, Bethany. I think, um, I mean, besides, I actually have one of my childhood best friends ended up going on an Israel pilgrimage when he was a student at Liberty University. And he ended up meeting his wife, who was another student at Liberty University, very similar to your story, but were what, 20,000 students, no, maybe 16,000 students on campus. They had never really interacted. And then they go on this trip together and they fall in love. And now they've got 3 beautiful children. So I think that's one example of what can happen, maybe to the extreme. But There are also really impactful times in life where going on a travel experience can be healing. One of the things I really respect within the Catholic Church is the silent orders and even silent retreats. And there's something to be said for space being built into group travel for reflection. So even if there's time for making friends, I think there can also be time for just communing with God and I suppose understanding and processing your own heart and emotions too. And many of our journeys that we put together are capable of that. They offer that space, especially in the evenings, but maybe even in the sites themselves, to be able to withdraw and reflect. The Garden of Gethsemane is probably one of my favorite places to do that, as is Engedi. I think we probably have hundreds of examples of people whose lives have been positively impacted by making a friend or not.
Definitely. And then just because we haven't done it yet, we'll go to a short commercial break and share some info with you all, and then we'll be right back.
Christian travel enriches the faith and lives of believers, empowers teachers and preachers, and energizes church ministry in unforgettable and lasting ways. Internationally known speakers and authors travel with many of our tours, contributing their insights and expertise. Our world-class guides are dedicated to giving guests the experience of a lifetime. We offer and often include exclusive excursions in many destinations. All this and more is aimed at enriching your and your travelers' faith. Old and New Testament landscapes range from the Middle East all the way to Europe. You'll have hundreds of departures and unforgettable itineraries to choose from in these locations. Follow the missionary journeys of Paul in the Mediterranean. Engage in the historical and cultural implications of the scriptures when you visit ancient wonders in Egypt, Jordan, and Turkey. As a worldwide leader in Holy Land travel, we are certain to have just the experience for you and your ministry. Follow in the footsteps of Jesus as his life, death, and resurrection unfold before your eyes, with visits to Bethlehem, Nazareth, the Galilee, Jerusalem, and more. You can also engage in the struggles these regions continue to encounter through our contemporary travel options. The faith of our church fathers gives us encouragement, instruction, and vision. ETS has tailor-made tours that trace the lives and works of many influential Christian figures, including John Wesley, Martin Luther, and C.S. Lewis. Bolster your faith and further engage in the heart of your traditions on a church heritage tour. Experience many biblical and cultural destinations by sea with Royal Caribbean, Celebrity, and Azamara. Be transported to destinations sacred and exotic while only having to unpack once. Comfortable staterooms, delicious and bold cuisine, plus Broadway-style entertainment, spas, and boutiques will make your voyage truly memorable. Speaking of cruising, consider the luxurious and elegant option of river cruising. With vessels in Asia, Africa, Europe, and more, you can enjoy the company of like-minded believers while exploring cultures throughout the world. The church is known for encouraging and communing together as a way of illustrating the love and unity of Christ to the world. Women's retreats, marriage retreats, church anniversaries, and other special occasions are times to gather with your faith family. Form extraordinary memories by celebrating in locations all over the world on one of our fellowship cruises. Choose from destinations like Alaska, Hawaii, the Caribbean, Antarctica, and more. Enrich your faith and renew your spirits. Call your local travel advisor today.
All right. And welcome back, everybody. So excited to continue with our final benefit, number 4. Of course, it is see the best of the best, because when you're doing a group travel and you didn't have to worry about the planning and you don't have to worry about when you're going to get there, and you're just enjoying having company and possibly making new friends, the final real benefit is just because everything's so taken care of, you truly are going to get to see the best of the best, especially if you're doing any kind of journey with us. I'll brag a little bit. We always try to make sure that the highlights of any destination are included in our trips. If you're going to Greece, you're of course going to see the stunning Parthenon there in Athens. We're going to take you to Corinth so you can see the ruins there and the Bema, where Paul spoke to the Corinthians. You're going to go and see Meteora, which is some of the most just grand natural God's design you'll ever see. Like, it's crazy. Like, men could not build mountains like that, so it's just so creative and stunning and beautiful. You're going to see the beautiful Aegean Sea, and that's just one example in one country, like on one of our Journeys of Paul trips that we've talked about before. When you're traveling to the Holy Land with us, you're going to see all the amazing archaeological sites. You're going to see all the major points and places that Jesus would have spent his life and done his ministry, from where he was born in Bethlehem to sailing on the Sea of Galilee like he did with his disciples during his ministry up there, to coming to the Garden Tomb and seeing what the tomb would have looked like and being able to share communion and have these amazing moments. So it's not only seeing the best of the best, but we also really try to make the best of the best moments, giving the opportunity to get in the Jordan River and remember your baptism, or to be baptized if you've not been baptized before, worshiping and talking about, feeding the 5,000 while you're on the Mount of the Beatitudes, these kind of memories that you're going to bring back with you. And as you're reading your Bible later in life, you're going to really visualize it and be able to see it. So, I mean, that's the biggest benefit of doing a group tour, is knowing that all of that's been pre-planned, it's taken care of, and you're going to have this amazing experience that's going to stay with you for the rest of your life. So, David, do you have kind of an experience you've had that stayed with you that you would describe as one of the best of your life?
Oh my goodness, that's unfair.
I know you have a lot. You've traveled a lot.
I've been very blessed to have traveled a lot. And a lot of it is Israel for me. Even though I've been so many other places, that has probably impacted me more than any other, or it has impacted me more than any other place I've been. Being prayed for on the Sea of Galilee by my grandfather. He laid his hands on my shoulders and prayed for me. The most beautiful, heartfelt prayer that I still am encouraged by. What was it, 25 years later? Those kind of things I encourage. Yes, I know it's an investment. I know that your clients are excited to travel and that they've saved up their money. Maybe they were school teachers and they put it away in a 50c3b or whatever it's called. I don't even know the investment, but have them pray about bringing at least one of their grandkids with them or their child. Invest in the next generation and watch those dividends pay off. And a group doesn't need to be the same age group or one church. Be a little adventurous and invite others in your community and see how God will use that to impact your community for good and God's kingdom for good.
Wow, that's awesome. That's a great best of the best. And I totally agree with you. Like the multi-generational trips, having family together and then inviting friends and community maybe to join you. Like it's a wonderful, wonderful way to travel. Absolutely. So we really encourage everybody listening to the podcast to think about, enjoying the scenery and ignoring the road, not worrying about how you're going to get there. Let us, do the planning for you or someone else so that you can just have the free time to really be in the moment and not, worry about the arrangements. And hopefully you can make new friends, or like David's suggestion, to get the best of the best kind of trip, multi-generational is absolutely amazing. And I feel like not enough people really think about traveling as a large family because they worry about, oh, well, I've got to coordinate getting everybody there and worry about, is everybody going to be happy? Is there going to be enough activity or things to do for all the different age groups? And so, a faith-based journey that's going to appeal across the different ages and where everything's been kind of taken care of for you and you don't have to worry about the arrangements and you can just enjoy and be with your family. I do think, David, that's a wonderful, wonderful suggestion. So those were your 4 benefits, and we look forward to having you join us on the next episode. And until then, everyone, have a great time. We're getting ready to go into the holidays, so I hope you have very blessed holidays.
And happy Thanksgiving.